Hello everyone, and welcome to my General Hospital official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Charlotte Cassidy never expected her entire world to implode in a matter of minutes, yet as handcuffs clicked around her wrists, the sound echoed like a judgment she couldn't escape. The PCPD squad car lights cast red and blue flashes across her terrified face, and the shock of being arrested left her barely able to breathe. "This is a mistake," she whispered, her voice trembling as the officers guided her toward the car. "You don't understand, I didn't mean for anything to go wrong." But the officers had their orders, the evidence had been piling up for weeks, and now Charlotte was facing consequences she'd never believed would land on her shoulders. At the station, as an officer shut the door behind her, she looked around with wide, watery eyes. "I need my father," she murmured. But Valentin Cassidy was nowhere in sight. And that absence, much bigger than any criminal charge, was what shattered her the most. Lulu, still fighting her slow and painful way back from her coma, had started showing signs of progress, and although she wasn't fully awake, the doctors agreed she was reacting more clearly to the world around her. That made Laura's worry over Charlotte even heavier, as if she were juggling two catastrophes at once. Laura arrived at the PCPD breathless, her voice already sharp. "Where is she? What's going on?" When Jordan stepped forward, face serious, Laura's heart dropped. "Laura, Charlotte was brought in regarding an arson investigation and potential stalking." Laura stiffened. "She's a child." Jordan shook her head slightly. "She's old enough to know what she was doing, and the pattern is undeniable." Laura pressed a hand to her forehead, whispering, "This is spiraling. We need Valentin. He should have been here. He should have been paying attention." Jordan added softly, "We tried contacting him. He's unreachable." And that statement stunned Laura, because Valentin was never unreachable, unless he didn't want to be found. Anna Devane arrived moments later, her stomach in knots, torn between guilt and fear. She knew Charlotte's fixation on her had escalated far beyond typical teenage rebellion, but she prayed the girl would never slip further into darkness. When Anna stepped into the interrogation room, Charlotte looked up with a mixture of anger and desperation. "You think I'm a monster?" she whispered. Anna's eyes softened. "No. I think you're hurting." Charlotte's jaw clenched as tears shimmered. "You ruined everything. You ruined my family." Anna inhaled slowly. "Charlotte, no one wants to see you in trouble, but you crossed lines you can't uncross." Charlotte snapped. "You weren't supposed to replace me. My father was supposed to choose me." Anna closed her eyes for a moment, recognizing Valentin's absence had pushed Charlotte into a freefall. "You're not alone," Anna said gently, but Charlotte turned her face away, whispering sharply, "He left. He left because of you." Back at the PCPD entrance, Dante and Sam walked in together, both aware the situation was more fragile than anyone initially realized. Dante glanced at Laura, relieved she was there but worried about the emotional strain on her. "Do we know the extent of the charges yet?" he asked Jordan. Jordan answered grimly, "Stalking, vandalism, breaking and entering, and suspected arson. And that's just the start." Laura closed her eyes, murmuring, "Valentin should have brought her back before it got this far." Dante exchanged a look with Sam, both knowing that Valentin going dark raised an entirely different set of alarms. Sam said, "This isn't like him. He wouldn't abandon her unless something was wrong." Dante nodded, adding, "Or unless he's trying to protect her from something bigger." Laura turned to them, voice trembling. "Find him, please, before this gets worse." As the interrogation continued, Charlotte's emotional breakdown deepened. "I wasn't trying to hurt anyone," she insisted, her voice cracking. "I was trying to protect my father. I was trying to make her go away." Anna sat across from her, her tone gentle but firm. "Setting fire to my home could have killed me, Charlotte. Could have killed someone else." Charlotte wiped her cheeks angrily. "I panicked. I thought if you were scared, you'd leave him alone. And then he'd come back." Anna swallowed hard. "Your father didn't leave because of me. He left because he needed to keep you safe." Charlotte's eyes widened. "Safe from what?" For a brief second, Anna considered telling her the truth, that Valentin's disappearance wasn't voluntary, that something darker might be pulling him away, but Jordan suddenly re-entered the room, halting the conversation. "We have an update," Jordan said quietly. "Interpol flagged a Cassadine-related incident overseas, and Valentin's name is attached." Laura felt her stomach drop as Jordan explained that Valentin's passport had been scanned in a remote region days earlier, one known for Cassadine activity. "What does that mean?" Laura demanded. Jordan said, "We don't know yet. But his disappearance may not be as intentional as it looked." Sam folded her arms, muttering, "So someone might have taken him off the grid." Dante shook his head in frustration. "Who would go after Valentin now? He's been trying to leave that life behind." Laura whispered, "Cassadines don't let anyone go." And the weight of that truth hit the entire room. If Valentin hadn't abandoned Charlotte, then he might be the one who needed rescuing. For Charlotte, the revelations only sent her deeper into despair. "I didn't know," she whispered, her shoulders shaking. "I thought he left because of me." Anna's eyes softened, her voice low. "No, sweetheart. Your father loves you more than anything. If he's gone, it's because something forced him away." But Charlotte's guilt was already suffocating her. "I made everything worse. Now he's gone and everyone hates me." Anna shook her head firmly. "We don't hate you. But you need help." Charlotte whispered, "I need my dad." And Anna, for the first time in days, felt the sharp ache of fearing that Valentin might not return to Port Charles alive. As the night stretched on, a storm rolled in over Port Charles, matching the tension at the PCPD. Dante and Sam prepared to leave for the airport, determined to follow the Interpol trail. Laura paced the station lobby, unable to shake the image of her granddaughter handcuffed and terrified. Jordan and Anna discussed legal options, debating whether Charlotte should remain in custody or be transferred to a juvenile care facility. Anna argued for compassion. She needs psychological evaluation, not jail. Jordan countered, "She committed a series of dangerous crimes. We can't ignore the risk." Laura stepped in, her voice barely steady. "Please. She's not a criminal. She's lost." Later, Jordan confronted Anna privately. "You're letting emotion cloud your judgment." Anna crossed her arms. "She's a child who's been manipulated by Cassadine trauma her entire life." Jordan sighed. "Even so, she crossed into felony territory. If we don't act appropriately, we'll be enabling more damage." Anna slammed back. "If Valentin were here, this wouldn't be happening." Jordan paused, softening slightly. "And that's exactly why we need to find him." For the first time, both women stood in complete agreement. Valentin's return wasn't just important. It was essential. Charlotte remained in the holding room, her knees pulled to her chest, her mind replaying every step that had led her here. She remembered the letters she'd written to Victor, the whispers she'd followed, the warnings she'd ignored. "Why did I listen?" she murmured to herself. "Why did I think he knew what was best?" Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I just wanted things to be like before." Her voice cracked as she whispered, "I'm sorry, Papa." But regret couldn't erase evidence, and it couldn't undo the flame she had set. Then the unexpected happened. A commotion erupted at the front of the station. Uniforms rushed toward the entrance. Laura stood frozen as Jordan stepped forward cautiously. Anna followed close behind, her heart pounding. And then he appeared. Valentin Cassadine, bruised, exhausted, but very much alive, stepped into the PCPD, his eyes burning with furious determination. "Where is my daughter?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Laura gasped, bringing a hand to her mouth. Anna whispered, "Valentin." But he didn't look at anyone except Jordan. "I want to see her. Now." Jordan blinked, stunned. We didn't know if you were still." Valentin cut her off sharply. "I know, and I'll explain everything. But first, take me to my daughter." Jordan opened the holding room door, and Charlotte looked up, her breath catching. "Papa," she whispered, standing shakily. Valentin crossed the room in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms as she broke down sobbing. "I thought you left me," she cried. "I thought you didn't want me anymore." Valentin held her tighter. Never think that. I was taken, Charlotte. I had to escape to get back to you." She pulled back, confused and trembling. "Taken by who?" He brushed her hair gently. "Someone who wanted to use me. Someone who thought they could control us. Anna watched from the doorway, her heart twisting as Valentin whispered, "I'm here now. And I won't let anything happen to you." But when Jordan stepped inside, the reunion shifted. "Valentin, Charlotte still faces very serious charges," she reminded softly. Charlotte tensed, and Valentin immediately moved in front of her protectively. "I'll handle it," he said with icy resolve. "Every single consequence. But my daughter will not face this alone. Not for 1 second." Jordan nodded, respecting the fire in his tone but unwilling to ignore the law. "She'll need a lawyer. And she'll need to undergo psychiatric evaluation." Valentin nodded once. "Done. Whatever she needs." Charlotte clung to his arm, whispering, "Don't leave me again." He cupped her face. "I'm not going anywhere." As the Cassadine storm settled into the station, Anna stepped forward slowly. "Valentin," she said softly. He turned to her, grief and exhaustion etched into his expression. "Anna." For a moment the world seemed to fall away as they stared at each other, both weighed down by guilt, fear, and unspoken love. Anna whispered, "I thought we lost you." Valentin shook his head gently. "You don't get rid of me that easily." She managed a small smile before asking quietly, "Who took you?" Valentin's expression darkened. "Someone who still believes the Cassadine legacy isn't finished." Anna felt chills run through her. "Then this isn't over." Valentin nodded grimly. "Not even close." Charlotte's arrest had forced Valentin back into Port Charles, but his return signaled a much deeper danger. As he prepared to face the legal and emotional war ahead, one thing became painfully clear. The Cassadines weren't done haunting Port Charles, and Valentin's fight to protect his daughter was only beginning. The air in Port Charles is never still, not truly. It shifts and curls, carrying whispers of old vendettas, the salt tang of the harbor, and the ever-present undercurrent of imminent crisis. In the sterile, well-lit corridors of General Hospital, where the scent of antiseptic competes with the perfume of secrets, a new tremor was building, one that would soon crack the carefully laid foundations of multiple lives and summon a ghost from the past. It began, as such earthquakes often do, with the youngest and most fragile of them all, Charlotte Cassadine. For months the young girl had been a puzzle box of trauma and silence. The psychological scars left by the manipulative Dr. Clay, and the deeper, more ancient wounds inherited from a lineage steeped in darkness, had rendered her a volatile mystery. She was a Cassadine after all. The name itself was a synonym for legacy, for a history written in ice and blood. Laura Collins, her grandmother and the city's mayor, watched her with a heart fractured between love and dread. Dr. Hamilton Finn and Dr. Elizabeth Weber, tasked with navigating the labyrinth of her mind, exchanged worried glances over charts that spoke of regression, not progress. The art therapy sessions, meant to be a window, had become a wall of chaotic, furious sketches, obsessive renderings of the hook that had terrorized the town, of shadowy figures, of a man with a familiar, sorrowful gaze. The incident at the Metro Court pool was the spark. It wasn't an accident. Security footage, reviewed with chilling clarity by Detective Harrison Chase and Commissioner Anna Devane, showed a deliberate act. A younger child, a friend, had been laughing on the diving board. A blur of motion, Charlotte, her face a mask of preternatural calm, darted forward not to join but to dislodge. A shove, calculated and swift. The child tumbled not into the water, but onto the hard concrete edge, resulting in a concussion, a broken arm, and a community swimming in fear. The motive was a whisper only Charlotte could hear, a perceived slight from days before, magnified by the distorted lenses of her unwell mind. The parents were rightfully furious, demanding justice, not therapy. The legal system, a machine less nuanced than psychiatry, began to grind. Anna Devane's face was ashen as she stood in Laura's office at City Hall. "Laura, I have no choice. It's beyond a cry for help. It's assault. A serious one. The evidence is incontrovertible. The DA is under enormous pressure. If she were anyone else." "But she's not anyone else," Laura pleaded, her mayoral composure crumbling into grandmotherly despair. "She's a child, Anna. A sick child. A psychiatric facility, not a juvenile detention center. The system sees a violent offender who happens to be a minor," Anna said, her voice tight with a professional duty that strangled personal affection. The arrest warrant is signed. We have to bring her in for processing. Today. The scene at the Cassadine mansion was a study in Gothic tragedy. Laura and Kevin Collins stood like sentinels of reason, trying to project calm. Charlotte, in a beautiful pale yellow dress, looked like a doomed cherimoya. She didn't cry. She didn't protest. She simply observed Chase and another officer with the detached, curious interest of a scientist examining a new species of insect. It was this eerie calm, more than any struggle, that chilled the blood. As Chase gently, for he was a gentleman, and knew this was a medical failure as much as a crime, guided her into the back of the patrol car, the dam of public opinion in Port Charles broke. News spread like a chemical spill. Cassadine heiress arrested for vicious attack. The headlines were predictably brutal. In Kelly's, Curtis Ashford and Stella Henry debated the line between accountability and compassion. At the Savoy, Sonny Corinthos, no stranger to the blurred morals of protecting family, listened grimly as his associates murmured about that Cassadine madness coming out again. At the hospital, the staff of GH was divided. Some, like Liz, advocated fiercely for her patients' need for treatment, while others whispered that privilege shouldn't buy a pass for violence. But the most profound shockwave radiated from a single silent point on the globe. Valentin Cassadine had made himself a ghost. After sacrificing his own happiness to ensure Charlotte's safety and future, believing his presence was a toxin in her life, he had vanished. He was in Estonia, in a stark, modern apartment overlooking a cold sea, trying to become a man who did not exist. His phone, a device he rarely checked, was a tether he wished to sever. But news of a Cassadine, especially his Cassadine, has a way of circling the globe. The alert came from a discreet service he paid to monitor Port Charles news. The words Charlotte Cassadine and arrested appeared on his screen. The world, which had been a muted gray, instantly sharpened into a blade of pure panic. The carefully constructed fortress of his exile shattered. Every rationale, every noble sacrifice, evaporated. His daughter was in a cage. The system he deeply distrusted had its hands on her. The people he'd left her with, capable, loving people, had failed to protect her from this ultimate indignity. A storm of paternal fury, long buried under layers of remorse and theatrical charm, erupted within him. Valentin Cassadine was coming home. The processing of a minor is a cold, bureaucratic nightmare designed to strip away identity. The fingerprints, the mugshot, which would later be sealed, but the horror of it remained. The exchange of her lovely dress for a standard-issue jumpsuit. Each step was a violation that Charlotte endured in mute, terrifying silence. She answered questions with monosyllables or not at all. Her lawyer, a high-priced shark hired at Laura's frantic insistence, argued for immediate release to a psychiatric facility. The DA argued for her to be held as a danger to the community. The judge, a stern woman with no patience for the dramas of Port Charles's elite, landed somewhere in the cruel middle. Charlotte was remanded to the Juvenile Detention Center for a 72-hour psychological evaluation before a bail hearing. It was, as Laura sobbed to Kevin, a holding pen for criminals, not a clinic. The juvenile facility was a world of echoing linoleum, slamming steel doors, and the hollow eyes of lost children. Charlotte, placed in a sparse solitary cell for her own protection, finally broke. The Cassadine ice melted into the raw terror of a little girl. She curled on the thin mattress, the silence pressing in on her, and for the first time since the arrest, she wept. She didn't cry for herself, not exactly. She cried for the absence of a specific, anchoring presence. In her deepest despair, the name she whispered into the scratchy blanket was not Laura, not Kevin, not even her mother Nina. It was Papa. 3,000 miles away, a private jet sliced through the night sky. Inside, Valentin stared unseeing at the clouds below. His mind was a reel of memories. Charlotte laughing as he taught her to waltz, her trusting hand in his, the way her eyes lit up at a perfectly timed piece of chocolate. He had believed leaving was the ultimate act of love. Now he saw it as the ultimate act of cowardice. He had abandoned his post. And in his absence the wolves had circled. He mentally catalogued the players. Anna Devane, who had once loved him but whose moral compass was rigid. Laura, well-meaning but ultimately powerless against the machine. Sonny Corinthos, a force of nature, but one with his own complicated history with the Cassadines. Valentin would need leverage, strategy, and the unflinching willingness to burn every bridge back to the man he tried to become. His return was not announced. He was a phantom moving through the familiar shadows of Port Charles. His first stop wasn't the jail or Laura's or even Windmere. It was a discreet, anonymous hotel room. From there he began to make calls. He contacted his most ruthless, discreet attorneys. He accessed offshore accounts he'd promised to leave dormant. He reached out to old contacts in the gray areas of European law and influence. Valentin was not returning as a penitent. He was returning as a strategist, a general preparing for war to liberate his princess. The news of his presence broke like a thunderclap. Anna heard it from Dante Falconeri, who'd heard it from a source in the DA's office who'd received a blistering, legally impeccable fax from a firm representing Mr. Cassadine. Sonny heard it from his men, who'd seen a figure matching Valentin's description near the waterfront. Nina Reeves, Charlotte's mother, was in her office at Crimson when she saw a missed call from an unknown international number. Her heart stopped. She knew. Valentin's first public move was a masterstroke. He didn't skulk. He arrived at the Port Charles Police Department just as the sun was setting, casting long, dramatic shadows. He was dressed in a flawlessly tailored charcoal suit, his face a mask of composed anguish, every inch the distraught, powerful father. Reporters, already camped for updates on the Cassadine case, swarmed. "Mr. Cassadine, are you here to see your daughter? Do you blame the authorities for her arrest? What's your response to the charges?" Valentin paused, turning to the cameras. The shock on his face was genuine, but the performance was expertly calibrated. "I have returned to Port Charles for one reason and one reason only, to care for my gravely ill daughter," he said, his voice vibrating with the emotion that was not entirely false. "The fact that she has been criminalized rather than treated is a failure of catastrophic proportions. I will not rest until Charlotte is in a medical facility receiving the care she needs and deserves. And I hold everyone who allowed this travesty to occur personally accountable." It was a declaration of war wrapped in paternal concern. Inside, he met with Anna and Chase in an interrogation room, the air crackling with history and hostility. "Valentin, you can't just," Anna began. "I can and I will," he interrupted, his tone glacially polite. "Commissioner, I am here to see my daughter. Now. And you will arrange it, or my next meeting will be with the governor, along with a lawsuit against this city for cruel and unusual punishment of a mentally incapacitated minor that will make your head spin." He had the law, or at least a terrifyingly expensive interpretation of it, on his side. They had no choice. The meeting room at the juvenile center was a bleak, soundproofed cube. When Charlotte was let in, smaller and paler than Valentin remembered, the last vestiges of his performative facade crumbled. Her eyes, huge and swimming with tears, met his. "Papa." The word was a mere breath. He was across the room in 2 strides, kneeling before her, ignoring the observing guard. He didn't hug her, sensing her fragility. He simply took her hands. "Charlotte, my darling girl. I am here. Look at me. I am here, and I am not leaving you. Do you understand? Never again." She nodded, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "I want to go home." "You will," he vowed, his voice steel wrapped in velvet. "I promise you." That promise became the engine of his every action. He attacked on all fronts. Legally, his lawyers filed motion after motion, challenging the conditions of her confinement, the adequacy of the facility's psychological evaluation, and the very basis of the charges, citing her documented mental state. Financially, he made it known that his vast resources were now dedicated to a single cause: Charlotte's freedom. He hinted at donations drying up, at business interests withdrawing from the city. Politically, he leveraged every connection, from obscure European nobility to powerful American lobbyists, to bring pressure on the DA's office. His return sent destabilizing ripples through every relationship in town. His confrontation with Nina was a tempest of guilt and recrimination. They met at the Metro Court, in a secluded corner. "You left, Valentin. You abandoned her," Nina accused, her own guilt over her past absence making her lash out. "And you were here playing publisher," he shot back, his voice low and dangerous. "Where was your famed maternal instinct when they were putting her in handcuffs, Nina? Decorating a magazine cover." The wound was brutal and deliberate. His dynamic with Laura was colder, more diplomatic but no less tense. You were her guardian, Laura. You were supposed to protect her from this. We are trying, Valentin. The system. The system is a blunt instrument and you handed her to it, he stated, leaving no room for argument. But his most complex dance was with Anna Devane. Their history was a tapestry of love, betrayal and deep, unresolved connection. He found her one evening at her desk, exhausted. You're playing a dangerous game, Valentin, she said, not looking up. Threatening the city, intimidating officials. It won't help Charlotte in the long run. What helps Charlotte, he said softly, moving to stand before her desk, is getting her out of that hellhole. And if you stood in my way, Anna, truly stood in my way to uphold a law that is torturing a child, then you are not the woman I believed you to be. It was a personal challenge, aimed directly at her heart. He knew her principles were her bedrock, but he also knew her capacity for compassion. He was asking her to choose. The climax came at the bail hearing. The courtroom was packed. The DA presented Charlotte as a calculated, dangerous individual, pointing to the coldness of the pool incident. Charlotte's court-appointed therapist, influenced by Valentin's relentless pressure and her own observations, testified to the girl's profound dissociation and psychosis, arguing that jail was exacerbating her illness. Valentin's lawyer then presented a staggering proposal. Charlotte would be released into Valentin's sole custody. She would be placed under 24/7 guard at Windermere, guards he would pay for, and would receive daily in-home psychiatric care from a team of 3 top specialists he had already retained from Switzerland. He offered a bail sum that made even the judge blink. The DA scoffed. Your Honor, this is Cassadine theatrics. Buying his way out of justice. Valentin stood. He had not planned to speak. But he turned, not to the judge, but to the gallery, to the people of Port Charles watching. Justice, he said, his voice quiet but carrying to every corner. What justice is there in terrorizing a sick child? I am not asking for her to go unpunished. I am asking for her to be healed. You wish to punish someone? Punish me. I am her father. Her illness, her pain is my failure. So punish me. Sentence me to whatever you like. But let my daughter come home and get well. It was a breathtaking piece of theater, all the more powerful because the raw pain in his eyes was unmistakably real. He was offering himself as a scapegoat. Laura began to cry silently. Nina looked shattered. Even Anna, from her seat at the back, felt her resolve waver. The judge, after a long heavy silence, made her ruling. Bail was granted under the strictest of conditions. Charlotte would be released to Valentin's custody. The terms were draconian: electronic monitoring, the sworn guard, daily check-ins with the court, and the absolute condition that if she so much as stepped a toe out of line, she would be taken back into custody immediately, and Valentin would be charged with contempt and obstruction. It was a victory, but a precarious one, one on a knife's edge. The release was a subdued affair. Valentin whisked Charlotte from the courthouse into a waiting car, shielding her from the cameras. Windermere, the brooding castle on the island, had never seemed more like both a sanctuary and a gilded prison. Charlotte stood in the grand foyer trembling. The ordeal had left her a ghost of herself. It's over, my love, Valentin said, placing a hand on her shoulder. You're safe. But was she? And was it over? Valentin's shocking return had achieved its immediate goal, but at a tremendous cost. He had reignited old feuds, exposed the fault lines in every alliance, and positioned himself as the lone protector against a hostile world. He had reminded everyone of the formidable, ruthless force he could be. Anna watched from her car as the gates of Windermere closed, her mind racing with a mixture of professional suspicion and personal turmoil. Sonny received the news with a grim nod, knowing the balance of power in Port Charles had just shifted. Laura felt a bittersweet relief, tainted by the knowledge that control had been wrested from her hands. And Charlotte, in her room overlooking the dark water, clutched a stuffed animal and stared into the middle distance. She was home, but home was now a fortress under siege. Her father was back, a knight in slightly tarnished armor, but the dragons he had fought, the law, public opinion, the demons in her own mind, still circled the walls. The shockwaves of her arrest and his return would reverberate for months. Trust was broken. Alliances were fractured. Valentin Cassadine had proven he would burn the world for his daughter. The question that now hung in the Port Charles air, thick as the harbor fog, was what would be left standing after the flames died down, and whether his love, however fierce, was the cure she needed, or simply a different kind of gilded cage. The battle for Charlotte's future had not ended with her release. It had simply entered a new, more dangerous and deeply personal phase.